In the field of exercise science, there is something we refer to as the SAID principle. In essence, it just means that the body will make specific adaptations depending on the type of stress you put on it. So why would an endurance athlete, someone who competes in long duration endurance events, ever think that lifting heavy weights in the weight room could make them run a faster 5K or compete better in an Ironman? I'm going to answer that question by explaining the top 3 main reasons why every endurance athlete should strength train. Also, you don't have to take my word for it. Anytime I make an important claim, I'll have a citation pop up on the screen with some of the current literature or publications supporting what I'm saying. All right, let's get started. Reason number 1. A good strength training program will improve endurance economy. Okay. So think of economy as efficiency. If you implement the proper strength training program, you're going to become more efficient. You'll use less energy at a given pace. But before I explain how lifting weights could actually make you more efficient, make you have better endurance economy, I have to dispel one common myth about weightlifting. This myth or misconception is that muscles only get stronger by getting bigger. I have to address this myth here and now because the current fitness industry has made a lot of people think that weight training is used to get big and bulky. And then athletes come up to you thinking that with all that increased size, there's actually going to be a decrease in efficiency. They're going to lose that endurance economy. A lot of athletes come up and ask, Lex, there's a reason why marathon runners or triathletes don't look like bodybuilders. Why are we weight training? Isn't the increased muscle mass just going to be more drag or weight during our event? And yes, that's partially correct. If you do get big and bulky from weight training, in all likelihood, it would slow you down. But the proper strength training program implemented correctly does not have to make you bigger and can still get you significantly stronger. Just look up a video of a female Olympic weightlifter. 120-pound female lifting 350 pounds from the ground over her head, and she doesn't look like a bodybuilder. Talk about strength and power without size. Lastly, if you're really an endurance athlete doing all the conditioning and cardio training for your sport, your body's going to prioritize all the aerobic adaptations over gaining muscle size. You don't have to worry about getting too big that it's going to make you inefficient in your sport. Okay, I dispelled that myth, but I still haven't explained how strength training can improve your economy. There's a bunch of different ways. It depends on your training level and especially your sport that you're in. But I'm going to give you 2 examples to really wrap your head around how strength training improves efficiency. The first example is a research study. They took a bunch of cross-country skiers, had them partake in a strength training program, and at the end of the program, their efficiency improved, meaning they were now at the same velocity using less oxygen. This improvement was attributed to 2 outcomes from the strength training program. One, their arms were now pulling at a lower relative workload compared to what they are now capable of after the strength program. And 2, the time to peak force muscle contraction was shorter. That faster contraction, both of those effects of the strength program contributed to a more efficient glide, increasing their efficiency. Now, that's kind of a hard example to wrap your head around. Here's a very obvious one. It's going to be clear when I say it. The stronger you are, the better your ability to maintain proper form and posture during your event. Think of middle school track meet. At the end of their race, when they're finishing, if they have weak core, they're going to start twisting left to right. Weak hip flexors, those give out. They end up running behind themselves. And then even their stiffness in their muscles gives out, and they'll collapse at ground contact. Huge power leak. The list goes on, and you don't have to be a middle school track athlete. Know that no matter what your endurance sport is, It's an endurance sport. It's inherently fatiguing. You have to be able to maintain form and posture, and a good strength training program implemented correctly will allow you to do that. We're done with reason one. Reason two and three are shorter. Reason number two, a good strength program decreases injuries. You get better at running, biking, and swimming by running, biking, and swimming. So anything that allows you to train more frequently, longer, or harder is going to increase performance outcome. Think of it this way. The greatest lever, the strongest lever to performance outcome is consistency, and the biggest barrier to consistency is injury. I'm going to give you a few common injuries in a couple different sports and explain how strength training prevents those. But the easiest example to wrap your head around is just think about what physical therapists do. After you get injured, let's say an overuse injury from your sport, they give you exercises. Those exercises don't just work retrospectively. A lot of them you can just incorporate into your strength training program and prevent the injuries altogether. So, a good warm up is a great example of prehab in preventing injuries. But let's go into some of the common injuries let's start with biking. In a 1-year study of 109 cyclists, they had 94 injuries. Back and knee injuries were the most common, and knee injuries had the longest return to training, which is the longest recovery, time off training. When you're cycling for an hour, on average you do about 5,000 pedal revolutions. So if you're set up wrong, under recovering, or just doing too much too soon, too much training, and you didn't progress it, you're doing it too fast, then an overuse injury is right around the corner. So let's go through those in order. If you're set up wrong on the bike, then you wouldn't think strength training could really help that. But just like in reason one, where it helps you maintain efficient form and posture, that also helps you maintain safe form and posture. So if your band of core muscles around you while you're cycling give out and you start rounding more, you could definitely expose yourself to more risk of lower back or back injury. Let's tackle number two of those three common contributors to overuse injuries. Number two, under recovering. You could use the weight room to supplement saddle time. Let's break that down a bit. You could use a weight room, strength training, to elicit some of the same neuromuscular adaptations you were looking for on the bike, but now you get to reduce some of the workload, training volume, the hours in the week spent on the bike, all allowing you to recover more. I think we've seen a lot more research and anecdotal evidence of endurance athletes cross-training their way to success. The third reason was doing too much too soon or lack of patience. And a lot of times in cycling, this manifests with front of the knee pain. So you'll see someone who maybe took some time off and jumped back to the same cycling program or just increased their mileage too fast with having pain that could be diagnosed as patellar femoral syndrome. There's a bunch of different reasons this could be happening. One is patellar tracking, and just by strengthening the VMO, you might straighten that out, reduce it. That can be strengthened in the weight room, or progressing patiently in the weight room will just allow those tendons and ligaments to handle the force requirements from the quadriceps while cycling. Okay, I'm going to be brief talking about the common injuries with swimming and running. Swimming, just the asymmetric, repetitive nature of the sport, makes the shoulder vulnerable to impingements or rotator cuff injuries, so strength training, that shoulder girdle, can help prevent that. Running, a common injury is IT band syndrome, and the weight room's great at reducing that lateral knee pain or IT band syndrome by stretching, full range of motion, and strengthening the hips. All of the injuries I've talked about so far are chronic injuries or overuse injuries, but I'm a firm believer that the weight room can be used to reduce acute injuries as well. Whether it's the rarely used muscle groups that help you lift your leg over that rock at the end of the trail run or take a sharp turn, or it's just the coordination benefits you get from strength training. Or the most obvious, which is the improvements and increase in connective tissue, musculature, and bone density that help absorb a fall if and when it happens. So that's reason number two. Strength training prevents injuries. Number 3, strength training increases your power. I'm going to explain how exactly strength training increases your power, the physiology and mechanism behind it, and then how does that increase in power translate to better performance outcomes as an endurance athlete. But before I do that, I have one caveat, and that is not all strength programs are alike. The strength program has to be designed and implemented correctly to get all the adaptations I've talked about so far, and for those to translate to better performance, it has to be the proper strength program. Also, as a shameless plug, all of my workout programs are completely free. My whole program library, and I have a strength program for endurance athletes. Videos, breakdowns, progressions, everything. My whole program library is free. Please reach out if you're interested or want to start one of my workout programs. All right, done with the ad. Back to that progression of strength training increasing power, increased power, increasing performance. Let's work backwards. Let's start with performance outcome. What is your speed determined by as an endurance athlete? Only 2 things, your cadence and your power. Cadence is just the number of strokes per minute when swimming or steps per minute when running, pulls when rowing, revolutions when biking, and power is just the amount of force you can put into each one of those steps, revolutions, pulls, strokes. And oddly enough, depending on the sport, it tends to have an optimal range for cadence. That doesn't change whether you're beginner, intermediate, or advanced. I'll give you an example. You could be an 8-minute miler with a 90 step per minute cadence, or you could be a 4-minute miler with a 90 step per minute cadence. So what must that 4-minute miler be doing differently? Clearly, they're covering way more ground per step. They're putting more force and more power into every step. Aha, there's that clear connection between force and performance outcome, or power and performance outcome. So now let's just finish that progression with how does lifting weights increase your power? Let's start by defining power. Power is just force divided by time. So you can increase your power by either increasing the amount of force you can generate or decrease the amount of time it takes you to generate that force. Luckily enough, strength training does both of those. It increases the amount of force you can generate and decreases the amount of time it takes you to generate that force 3 different ways: structural, fiber type, and neuromuscular changes. There you go, 3 reasons why all endurance athletes should strength train: improved endurance economy, injury prevention, and increased power. A good strength program allows you to maintain form under fatigue. You're now working at a lower relative workload, and your rate of force development is increased. All of those combined to improve your efficiency. Injuries are prevented because you can fix weaknesses and imbalances and prepare your tissues for different types of stress. And lastly, power is increased by both increasing the amount of force you can generate and decreasing the amount of time it takes you to generate that force. This comes through structural, fiber type, and neuromuscular changes. Thank you for watching. Thanks for being interested. Please reach out if you have any questions or want to get in contact with me. Or if you want to start one of my free workout programs, reach out or check out my website. Thank you.